Hello everyone, welcome to Forensic Extract, and today we will study about firearms. So almost every gun is based on the same simple concept, and that concept is that when you apply some explosive pressure behind a projectile to launch it down a barrel, so some explosive pressure is applied behind a projectile to launch it down the barrel. This is the simplest concept of a firearm, and the earliest and simplest application of this concept is used in the cannon. So the first handheld guns were essentially mini cannons in which you loaded some gunpowder or a steel ball or lit a fuse. So it is going to launch projectile by burning of gunpowder. So the simplest idea of this concept was used in mini cannons. And in modern time, the handguns are the most popular and readily available firearms. These are handguns. Now, the role of forensic expert or forensic firearm expert is to compare the bullet comparison between the test bullet or the crime bullet or suspect bullet. The firearm expert has to compare. The second function is the weapon function, to examine the weapon, that whether this weapon is safe or not, has it been modified or not, some serial number restoration from that particular weapon, and the gunpowder detection, whether that is taken from claws, hands, or wounds. So GSR identification, and to decide muzzle to target distance. This distance is very important because this distance is going to decide the type of wound on the victim. So one has to decide how much was the distance between muzzle and target. Other roles are: did a suspect use this gun to kill that person? Or did these bullets come from that gun? Was it really an act of self-defense, or it's a case of suicide, or any foul play involved? These are the basic questions uh, which one firearm expert should answer in the court of law related to any firearm case. Now, the firearm identification is often confused with the term ballistics. So, the ballistics is divided into three categories. That is, the internal ballistics is the what physically occurs inside the gun barrel once a projectile is fired. So, what is happening inside the gun barrel is the internal ballistics. Now, the external ballistics, what physically happens to the projectile once it leaves the barrel. After leaving the barrel, what is happening with the projectile is the external ballistic. Now the terminal ballistics, how a projectile acts when it encounters a target. So this is the action of projectile after encountering the target. So if the target is living being, or the human being, or the animal, then this is called as wound ballistics. So terminal ballistics can be called as wound ballistics if the target is living organism. So these are three categories of ballistics. Now there are different types of firearm, like it can be handguns, revolvers, or semi-automatics. Then rifles, we are having shotguns, air and BB guns. So these are different types of firearms. Now the simple classification of firearm based on the loading mechanism, whether these are breech loader or whether these are muzzle loaders. Now the breech loader are further divided based on the condition of inner of barrel, whether the barrel is rifled or not. So if the barrel is rifled, then this is called as rifled weapon, and the if barrel is not rifled, so these are smooth bore firearms. Rifled weapons are further divided based on the length of barrel. That is, if the length of barrel is long, and these are long barreled firearm. If the length of barrel is short, then these are handguns like pistol and revolver. Then smooth bore firearm are further divided based on the their use, whether these are used in sporting activity, gaseous or military activities. So this is the simple classification of firearm. What is rifling we will study in coming slides. So first of all, the basic parts of any firearm. We'll take one example of revolver. So it's having the barrel. This part is called as barrel, and this is the muzzle end, and this is the breech end. Now this part is the frame part. This is the frame or stock, and this part is known as action or lock. So firearm having three parts. This is the stock or frame, and this is lock and action, and this is the barrel. And this is a cylinder in case of rifle weapon revolver. Now, what is the mechanism of action of any firearm? First of all, what happens that after pulling the trigger, that is going to release the firing pin, and the firing pin is strikes the primer. And the primer ignites the gunpowder, and the powder generate gases that propels the bullet forward through the barrel and eject the spent cartridge case. In some firearm, the cartridge case is ejected, but not in others. So, based on that cartridge case, over crime scene or some other place, we can find out the type of firearm. So, this is the basic mechanism of firearm. Now, what happens that after the firing pin strikes the primer ignites, and it is going to ignite gunpowder, and due to burning of that gunpowder it is going to release expanding gases, and these expanding gases pushes the bullet out of the barrel, and bullet will come out of the barrel. So this is the mechanism of any firearm. Now, what is rifling? Rifling is basically done to impart a rotational spin to the bullet along its longitudinal axis. This spin stabilizes the bullet in nose-on flight in consistency of a trajectory, and so basically it is giving gyroscopic effect. Now, what are the benefits of rifling? It is going to overcome the resistance of air and gravity through the gyroscopic stability. It is going to provide stability of any bullet, and it is going to increase the range of bullet, then increase in the striking velocity or the impact powerful penetration, and it is going to help in identification of a casual weapon. Based on the rifling, we can identify a particular weapon. So this is the rifling. This is very specific characteristic of rifled firearm. This can be made by using one rifle broach. Now, the bullet comparison is the most important part, in which what happens that each gun leaves distinct marking on a bullet passing through it, because a gun barrel is made from a solid bars of steel that has been drilled or hollowed out. So because of this feature, it is going to leave some distinct marking on the bullet surface. The drill leaves microscopic marks on the barrel's inner surface. So this bullet comparison is important part in deciding this crime bullet and comparing the crime bullet with the suspect bullet. Now the bullet comparison is gun manufacturer usually also add spiral grooves to the barrel, and this is known as rifling. This is the feature added by gun manufacturers, and the lands are the space between the grooves. So in the barrel of a rifle firearm, there are lands, there are grooves, there are lands, and there are grooves. So these are the lands and these are grooves. As a spinning bullet passes through the barrel, it is marked by these grooves. So what happens that when one bullet passes through the barrel, these grooves and these lands are going to mark some specific marking on the surface of bullet. So we can compare these markings with the suspect bullet. Now, what are class characteristics? What happens that once a manufacturer chooses a rifling process for a particular class of weapon, they keep it consistent. So what happens that these class characteristics are very specific to a particular class of weapon. So it can eliminate certain makes, certain class or certain makes, but it is not specific for a particular gun. So these are class characteristics. It can be the class characteristics can be the caliber of firearm. Caliber is the distance between two lands. So these are lands, and in between lands there are grooves. So the caliber is the distance between two lands, and the class characteristics can include the caliber of firearm, number of lands and groove, width of lands and groove, and the twist. What is twist? What is twist is the distance in inches traveled by the bullet. This is the distance in inches that is traveled by bullet in one complete rotation. This is the twist of any firearm. So twist is also a class characteristic. It can be the constant rate twist if the rate of twist is constant, but it in some firearm it can be gain rate twist, like the twist is gaining the rate, like this is gaining the rate. So this is gain rate twist and this is constant rate twist. So this is most important characteristic of any firearm. This is the class characteristic of any firearm. This is specific to any make or class of any firearm. Now, other is the individual characteristics. These are imperfections in the manufacturing process that make each barrel unique. So this is very specific to any individual firearm. And what happens in rifled barrel, even if made is succession, will not have identical striation, scratch like marks. So what happens that uh, due to some metal fouling or due to some imperfection in manufacturing, these specific characteristics will develop in a particular gun. So these are called as individual characteristics or fingerprint of firearms. Now the bullet comparison can be done. To match the bullet to a gun, test bullet must be fired through a suspect barrel for the comparison, so that barrel markings will come on the surface of the test bullet, and we can compare the test bullet with the uh, suspect bullet. That is done by using a Goddard or and comparison microscope. So examine bullet side by side to match the striated markings on the surface of bullet. So that is used by the comparison microscope, and these markings are in the form of like this. So these are the different markings on the bullet surface. We can compare by using, this is the crime bullet and this is the suspect bullet in the comparison microscope. So we can identify these markings based on the characteristics that are made, whether these are related to any particular gun or any particular make or type of weapon. Now other markings can be used. These are the markings on made on the cartridge of any firearm. These are because of all moving components contact the cartridge rather than the bullet can leave useful impression on the shell of cartridge. So these markings on the shell of cartridge are also important in identifying a particular weapon. So these marking can be heavy left side, and the vertical striations may be there, sandblasted appearance may be there, mottled appearance may be there, or the base of the cartridge, and the rim dents may be there, and mouse ear may be there. So based on these finding on the base of cartridge, we can identify the different characteristic related to any firearm. Like these are made because of some action of firing pin over this area or some other findings related to barrel of a particular gun. So these findings are very important in identification of any firearm. So thank you guys, and please keep on watching, and in coming video we will be discussing about the firearm wounds, and thank you.